Hello, I'm Mike Mercurio. I'm a principal with the law firm Offutt Kerman. Today I'm with my entrepreneurial friend, Tony Lawrence.
Hello, I'm Tony Lawrence, CEO of VOR Technology. We're a cybersecurity provider here in Hanover, Maryland.
Tony, I'm going to start with your early days. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, and is there an experience or a person that you attribute to your entrepreneurial spirit?
So I grew up in Central Florida, in Lakeland, Florida specifically. And in Lakeland, it's not a very tech-savvy environment. Not much technology going on. Basically, they're living as if they're in the 1970s. But I was very into technology, and I came from a disadvantaged background. We were homeless coming up, really didn't have access to any technology, but I was still, for some reason, interested in it. So joined the military as a way to get away from where I was raised. And as soon as I got into the military, I was involved with technology.
So why the Army then, as opposed to another branch of service? And how'd you get into cybersecurity?
So funny story, I joined the military shortly after 9/11. The Twin Towers fell, and I definitely wanted to contribute to the fight against terrorism. I was 16 when I joined the military. They started a special program that would allow kids still in high school to join. So I signed up immediately. My parents signed as well. That really got me involved into technology and really opened up my mind to other opportunities.
So tell us a little bit about your transition to the NSA. I understand you were handpicked for a position. Please elaborate.
When I joined the Army, I was involved in several different fields. I was 11 Bravo, infantryman. Did very, very well on my tests, and they said, Private Lawrence, you have an opportunity here to be involved in what's now known as cybersecurity. So I got involved early on. Since I scored so well on tests, I became attached to several special forces elements. And back in 2008, I was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan conducting what is now known as cyber operations. So, when I stepped foot on the ground, everyone else is much older than me. Everyone else was in their 40s, 50 years old, working on computers, etc. I was the only one that knew anything about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So I developed many of the TTPs currently being used by US Cybercom today. And because of that deployment, I was invited to the Pentagon to brief the Secretary of Defense and other senior military officials on what we were doing in Iraq and how they can utilize cyber capabilities in a conventional fight. So shortly after I briefed them, I went to work for former director of NSA, General Alexander, and General A was great. I worked very closely with him and Chris Inglis. They kind of opened my eyes up to how important the intelligence community is. And that kind of led into me starting my own small business to support the intelligence community and the government against the fight against terrorism and against cyber warfare.
Yeah, I want to move to VOR in a second, but before I do, what was most rewarding about working for the NSA or working for the government, period?
Very interesting working for the government. We all go to the DMV and see things kind of work slow, and that doesn't change when you go to other aspects or other places in the government. But to think about the National Security Agency working there, they have the most unique mission out of anyone in our country. Snowden came out and said some very, very negative things about NSA. And I could tell you up front that majority of what he said, about NSA collecting on US individuals, all lies. NSA does not do anything like that. They specifically focus on foreign individuals and they collect information on foreign targets. But those individuals are trying to harm us here in the United States. So that's all they do. So, I was very involved with what we were doing, and I applaud NSA because they have such a large, huge mission, and they're able to accomplish it with very little funding. So they're doing a great job, in my opinion.
So it sounds like you had a great career, a great thing going with the government. Was there an inflection point? Why did you decide to go out in the private sector and start VOR?
That's a funny question. So when I was working for the director, I was still in the military, E5 in the military, and my conventional military leadership wasn't very supportive of cybersecurity at the time. They didn't know what cybersecurity was, they didn't understand it. All they understood was boots on the ground, tanks, helicopters, etc. So, here I am working with John Alexander, and we're pushing for Cybercom. Big Army didn't like it, so I came down on orders to become a drill sergeant in Fort Leonard Woods somewhere, doing a non-technical job. So as soon as I came down on those orders to become a drill sergeant, I decided it's time to go. And I had spoken with General Alexander about starting a small business prior to that, and he was very, very supportive. And he now has his own company called Ironet Securities. But yeah, he and Chris Inglis gave me tons of support, and I jumped out of the military with no money, with nothing, and I was able to get something going, and that's how we are where we are today.
So I hear, Tony, that you were a hacker at one point. How'd you get into hacking, or tell us a little bit about that?
Started hacking when I was about 18 years old, just joined the Army. I was stationed in Korea, and I was dating this girl. I was in love with this girl. And something told me that, she might be messing around on me. So, I got on my computer and I basically taught myself how to hack, right? And I hacked into her email, and lo and behold, she had another boyfriend. But, even though that situation didn't work out well, it got me really, really involved and interested in hacking. So from that day forth, I just kept at it. So whenever I transitioned over to Fort Meade, Maryland, and I took these special tests designed for folks at the NSA, I scored off the charts. And I was able to get into the cybersecurity field very, very early because of that.